by now, it's no surprise. This phone is the talk of the town. Like, it's all over the media. This phone is the worst phone. Do not buy this. It is something you should stay away from. And in the title of this video, is it the worst phone? Is it the best phone? Let's find out. You're now rocking with Rakama. So I've had the better of 1.5 months or so to actually use this phone on a daily basis. And ultimately, there are some good things in this phone, and there are some things that Google could have improved on in this phone. Ultimately, let's go ahead and start with the display. Let's start with some of these issues that they're talking about. Have I had any of these issues? Only issue I can really say that from a personal standpoint that I've had is the blue screen. You know, you might even be able to see a little bit in this camera, but ultimately, the blue screen, is it that bad? Is it overhyped? I think it's just more of a preference thing. For me, since I've got multiple phones and I go back to other phones and I go back to this, and I notice it. Like when I'm actually laying this thing down at a desk, at work, or somewhere else, I can notice the actual blueness of the screen. Does it bother me though? It's like yes and no. It's like you kind of try to forgive it, but it's still there. Yeah, once you notice it, it's there. But ultimately, the display itself, I don't see the graininess some people are talking about. The screen itself is pretty sharp. As far as everything that I need to do, I can see it. I have really good, I guess you could say there's really good viewing angles on this. Even though that blue hue does kind of get in the way of your viewing angle a little bit, but you can still see what you need to see with this device. Well, overall, the display is pretty good. The sound quality, I will say this, the speaker itself, or I should say both speakers, because you have front-facing speakers, both of the front-facing speakers sound pretty good. To me, they sound comparable to the Nexus 6P. And by the way, if you haven't watched Samantha DeCoin's video, I just watched that video today. Go check her out. She actually did a comparison of the sound quality between this phone and the Nexus 6P, and they really kind of, to me, they sound identical. But I know sometimes when you're actually playing something over the camera, it may not sound the same way. But check her stuff out. But yeah, to me, this really does sound like the Nexus 6P, and that was kind of my thoughts off gate when I heard it day one. The 6P was good, but I think the Nexus 6 was actually a little bit better to my ears. So you're really gonna get some good sound quality out of this. There's also another issue sound-wise, two sound issues. One, people are reporting that through the USB-C port on the bottom, if you stick your dongle in, you have issues where you're not able to hear through your headphones. Some people's headphones are working, some people's are not. I haven't had that issue as far as I've tested personally, but that was before 8.1. This could be clearly software, so I may have to test that and come back to that later. But ultimately, I haven't had that issue with the sound at all. Some other people are having audio issues where in front-facing video, I think rear-facing video as well, they hear like some crackling noise or some distortion in the noise from the audio that's being recorded. I will play this one clip that I have. I went to the gym, and let me know what you think about that, and I'll be right back. So I just wanted to do a quick front-facing video camera test at the gym. According to Blake, anytime there's some background noise, the audio quality is terrible on the Pixel XL 2. So I'm just doing a quick test just to see how the audio sounds. So comment on the feedback down below. Alright, so let me know what you think about that clip. But overall, let's go ahead and segue into the camera. The camera on this thing is a boss. The camera optics, I don't know what kind of magic Google actually put together this year, but the camera is fantastic. The low light is pretty good. Dynamic range is on point. Contrast looks really nice on your pictures. And let's talk about that portrait mode. Portrait mode is fantastic. The camera is really good at being able to separate the subject from the background, and it's just fantastic. You just have to use it. The camera would be the reason why you buy this phone. Also, the image stabilization, like for OIS, EIS, it's fantastic. I think it's even better than the original Google Pixel. The EIS, it's like, once again, I hate to use the word magic, but it just seems like you're floating. You know, it's like this thing is on a gimbal, and it's significantly improved since the last one. But overall, so from the camera to the display, let's talk about the software. Software on this phone is pretty much as you would expect it to. They have some new tricks up their sleeve. They have this new listening feature. You have to go into your settings menu to turn it on. And once you turn it on, and if you're out in public anywhere, this phone will be listening for anything that's playing in the background. And then as soon as it picks it up, you will actually see it indicated at the bottom. And then once you have that, it'll show you the name of the artist and the music track that's playing. So without even having to unlock your phone, and that's really handy. So I believe that's the reason why Apple bought Shazam, and that's probably because they want to do the same thing. But they also have a lock screen display, always on lock screen display, which they never had that before. This is the first time Google's done that. And once again, I appreciate them doing that, but it's still not as good as the Samsung Galaxy S8 or the Note 8, where you can actually double tap the icon and it'll launch straight into that app. This, you double tap the icon and it pulls up your lock screen. Then you have to double tap the icon again and then unlock your phone using the whichever, either the pin or you can use your fingerprint to unlock it. But it's a couple more steps involved, and I actually prefer if they reduce some of that. But software-wise, it's still what you kind of expect. You have buttery smooth performance when you're going through your apps, your gaming, all of that is pretty smooth, except for one thing that I've seen, and it kind of gets on my nerves, is Google Chrome. Like, I don't know what it is, but every time I'm trying to scroll, it just locks up on me and it just stops like in mid-scroll, and I have to like wait for it to catch up, and it's like some kind of stuttery thing, and I don't know if it's the phone or if it's something with the developers, but I don't even use Chrome anymore, to be honest with you. I decided to use, wait for it, Edge Explorer. So ultimately, those are the only software quirks that I really came across after using this. But overall, it's still a pretty solid phone. The front-facing camera is great. Speakers look, they're really good. As far as the build quality on this thing, I know Google wants to keep using this semi-glass, semi-metallic build. I don't necessarily prefer it. I wish they would kind of be a little bit more consistent. If they're gonna go with the glass, they can go with the glass. Because this year, the specs, let me go ahead and hit up on the specs. I know we're already like 8 minutes into the video, but the specs I have on this thing, they're decent. They're not anything you haven't seen this year. You got the Snapdragon 835, 4 gigs of RAM. You have a 2K quad HD display. You have a 12 megapixel camera on the rear, and you have a 8 megapixel camera on the front. 1.4 micron pixel support, and that's pretty much it. You got your USB-C, your typical offenders. And so with this phone, I would have preferred a different design though. I would have preferred like either all glass or all metal. But they just trying to go half and half. But I will say, with this design choice, I have gotten better reception than the iPhone 10 actually. Like if I go to certain parts of the city, I get nothing on my iPhone 10, and then I'll just move down a street or so, and then I'll get all these notifications. But I've gotten really good reception with this phone, so no complaints there. But overall, with this phone, I don't really have a lot of complaints. The phone kind of does what it's advertised to do, but just however, all this bad media. Would this be a phone that I would actually recommend? At that price point, I'm gonna leave this to you to decide. I'm gonna say it's a yes and no answer. If you're a camera person, this is definitely a phone that's gonna be at the top of your list. When I say a camera person, like as far as mobile phones, if you're, into DSLR, none of these phones are gonna be on that level. But if you are a camera person, this is one that you want. If you're not, and it doesn't matter, you can probably go to OnePlus 5T route. And hopefully I will have a OnePlus 5T probably in the next month or so, and I'll be able to talk about that on the channel. And this phone overall, I mean, I think that Google has a quality control issue. They just dropped the ball, and I think this phone could have been a much better phone. Reasons being, the display obviously could have been a better display. No matter what anybody says right now, well, the screen is fine. The screen is fine, but it's not exceptional. The speakers could have been better too. The speakers are fine, don't get me wrong, they're actually pretty good. I think they could have been better. Battery life, for me, I got 7 hours of screen on time before the update, and now I'm getting 6 hours of screen on time after the 8.1 update. That could be because I chose to use the vivid color profile, maybe not. But I can only report on my experience. But for me, I don't have any of those other issues that they were talking about, but that is something to be cautious of if you're trying to buy this phone. So until next year, hopefully Google will decide to get their quality in better control, or maybe just not buy LG panels. But I think they've done better in the past, and I think that they can do better in the future. So I'm gonna hold Google to this. So for right now, the phone is kind of mediocre in some parts. In some parts, it's actually really exceptional. And I just think next year, y'all need to get it under control. But with that, I'm done. I'm out for Wakama. I'll see y'all on the next review.